You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos Podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Vahagan Naranosian, and joining me today is Stephen Ritchie. Hello,
Hey,
Stephen.
Vahagen. Welcome
You're
to.
welcoming me.
Sorry.
I'm welcoming you. So
I've still. Shall we
for
start?
for a little context, Steven was actually supposed to be hosting this episode, but because of technical reasons, I'm now hosting the episode. But we're both casual podcasters, so this is a classic case of we get to kind of host each other now.
Yeah, Vahagen being the superhero to my rescue. This is this is the true sense of inter-podcast collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We're part of a community ultimately, and we've got to help each other out when we need it.
Yeah, no, I actually think that this is it's a good bonding moment, and it's cool. I think maybe it's because we're sort of building up our communities and such. There's that kind of sort of more laid back, more you can do these kind of things, and you don't have to stress the marketing guys in your face or anything like that. You just do it works for you.
Yeah, when you keep people sometimes will ask me like, "Oh, do you want this to be a professional thing? Do you want to make money off of this thing?" And I'm like, I prefer to keep this as a hobby. Because ultimately that's what it started as. That's where I find that I get the most enjoyment out of it. Like, I don't have to try to make money off of this thing. It's really just about having conversations and chats with awesome people.
Yeah, as they say, the moment you turn a hobby into business, it's hard to keep that same sort of spark for why you came in. And I've had so much fun with this podcasting sort of hobby and pursuit and even passion that I don't know if I'd want to break that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so much fun on its own. Why do we need to ruin it with the poison of money?
Yeah.
And like you said, I don't want to deal with marketing people. I don't want to deal with editors and having to deal with the whims of social media to cater my vision to an audience. It's just about having conversations.
It's just like, it's almost like a man cave thing, but it's like, this is my space. This is kind of my
Yeah.
turn. How I like to express myself with other people, the kind of guests I like, the tough conversation, and just that sort of personal aspect and almost homey aspect to
Yeah.
it. Um,
I like
the,
I like the
yeah.
man cave analogy because I'm not the one kind of guy that would wants a physical space to myself necessarily, but I like carving out these mental spaces where
Yeah.
it's just nice to be in and you can have deep conversations. So let's get back to what we wanted to talk about. And so this was your idea to have a chat. So what inspired you to reach out and chat?
Yeah. Well, as always, I'm very excited to have a nice chat with Vahaken and on the Authentic, Chaos podcast. So, travel has, become a big thing for me. I've learned it's a big thing for you in life. And so, we both had an interesting timing of we went to these very interesting places that maybe a lot of people haven't gone to. I went to India, you went to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of did very different type of holidays, different places, different cultures. And I thought it'd be so interesting to kind of you compare like what is because travel is it's very different based on where you are and even the after effects of coming out of that. So I wanted to sort of explore, like what kind of experiences you have, the culture, the people, the food, and just kind of maybe even how we kind of grew and how this affected us as people. And so that'd be a nice sort of avenue for a nice conversation, something that very insightful. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I love
where
that
it's at.
idea. I can tell that we both I think we both view traveling in a similar way where it's not just like a thing you do. It's not just like a holiday. it is like it can be like a big cornerstone in your perspective building. It can be it you can experience. It's a way to experience a whole new side of life. It's a way to experience a whole new side of yourself, and it's a great way to shake up your environment to see what things come out from you and from the world.
It's almost like in a way, like injecting a phase into your life, if that makes sense. Like I sort of see it as, in life we have these big sort of moments and phases. A phase would be more like cool, moving, transitioning maybe from a high school to a university, or transitioning from a social group to another social group, or even just an age bracket transition. But then there's like more impactful things. Maybe you get married, or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have a bad experience, or maybe you learn something that just sits with you, a philosophy that just changes your view. And so when you travel, you're kind of creating a space where you go in as a person, and because of how massive and profound different places the world is, you know, if you like I think a successful holiday, well, all holidays are successful, right? You have a good time, it's a win. Or even if you don't, it's a learning journey. But I think you can, if you take away like, hey, I changed my perspective. I grew as a person. I came out just that little bit different, in a good way. I have feel like I've progressed my life in a way. Maybe it's not something that's flashy to others, but I feel I've just added an experience that I can sit with, reminisce, remember, and I think just finding ways to kind of challenge yourself, because traveling is always challenging, but I think for the better, and just even just seeing what's out there. There's so much, and our worldviews always have some sort of fog or war limitation, and just
Mm-hmm.
to stretch that a little bit and stretch who we are a little bit. It makes sense, right? You're interacting with so many different people. There's so many different norms and you know things to see, personalities, and just culture, and just landscapes and such. And so taking all that in, there's like you're going to be shaped and stretched, and all sorts of interesting and cool transitions. And so yeah, I think we've probably got a nice feel of that in our journeys. So yeah,
Yeah, and
we get to be a bit of Play-Doh for a day.
so you've had some time to reflect on your trip throughout India. Um, in what ways do you think that may have changed your perspective, or in your words, like, do you feel like that started like a new phase of your life, or was part of an existing phase?
So I think it is a step forward for me, and is a bit, to a degree, like almost a micro phase. It so at a point in my life where I'm already in a kind of a bit of a phase of, yeah, worked quite a long time in the industry in my career, and I've just put aside like the most time I ever have to travel experience before moving into the next thing. Just a pause moment, a reflect moment in this kind of busy world we live in.
Yeah.
And so with that, I wanted to make good use of it. And so yeah, I took on a big holiday. I did, yeah, so India, and then towards the end a bit of Dubai. But India was really special for me. And going in, it was hard to know what to expect. It's not a culture I get as much exposure as I would like. So going there, it really opened my eyes, and I really enjoyed it. I think coming back, it just kind of maybe reinstills the idea of what travel does for me, and also it makes me think like there's always like the places everyone says where to go, but part of it's also just like there's so many hidden gems in the world that you don't have to follow that trend. And your type of holiday and what is your kind of place or impactful for you is going to be different to everyone else. Like for me, culture, friendly people, different cuisine. That's exciting. I think we're both a bit of foodies in a way. We love our food and
Oh yeah. Oh
experiences.
yeah.
Um, I like the whole sort of yoga and sort of mindfulness culture, which we can relate. And I spend a lot of outdoors time, and just seeing like a different type of world. India is very diverse. One area I think someone was saying, you travel like 100 kilometers, like it's just a different culture. It's like it's such a big place, broken down into so many different kind of microcultures, maybe that it's yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge country with like what 1.7 billion people in it. So, not surprised that it's as diverse as you're saying.
The just for scale, like I think the population of South Africa fits in like Delhi, something like that, and it's like 7 times the landmass, and like um, the population density is like I can't remember the numbers, but it's like way way higher.
Yeah.
So I went in like almost scared, like am I going to be like cramped in a little sonic can, and what's going to be like? Just you go to the airport and you're just like this wave of people like swallows you or something. So. Um, yeah, it was going in. It was tricky.
And you know what? That's
Did you have? Yeah.
definitely a valid like concern or at least anxiety. And like I think like even I will sometimes get a little anxiety still when I like am getting ready for a trip in the coming days. It's like a mix of nervousness, excitement, and a little uncertainty because it is uncertain. You're going into a place that you've never been to in a culture maybe you've never experienced, and there is that part of your mind that's like I like we're gonna be okay, but like there is uncertainty. I need to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah. And I must say, like going in, my home team did not make it easy for the anxiety. I was warned about like, yeah, it's just gonna be crazy crowded.
Hmm.
There's like a lot of, you get diseases from the water. You got to be careful with the food. That there's all these things to
Oh
dodge.
yeah. You
It's
hear like your
run
friends.
down, like these.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
hear people like the news and friends and like travel advisories, and you're like, oh my god, am I going into a war zone? Like, am I gonna survive?
Yeah. No, no, exactly. So I was, I almost felt like I wouldn't make it up, the stairs into the plane, type thing. No, people could psych you out. I was excited, but I also was, yeah, it was quite intimidating going in, and people warned me like, oh, lots of scams, and oh, the roads are dangerous, and it's chaos, and there's noise, and a lot of that actually just was kind of out of proportion, maybe not even true, or maybe being on the ground, you understand it a bit better. Um, like,
Yeah.
I will say one of my top things, India. Do you know what's fun? This is the cool thing about different culture, and it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective. Also, like looking at ordinary things can be like fascinating. Like they must almost look at this guy and be like, where's this person from? How is this like the highlight of your day, right?
Hmm.
So like for me, just looking at like in Delhi or somewhere, the traffic, how it flows, how it works, the norms, that is just super interesting.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
thinking, why is this an interesting thing, right? At home it'd be like, like every day, like almost a frustrating thing. But I'm there and there's like you see well the busyness. This is where you actually feel like the numbers of people, like there's just every inch of the road is filled with something. So um firstly in the roads, because of Indian culture, cows are sort of sacred and things. There'll be sort of cows in the road, and then which and just traffic kind of swerves around it, and if it's not normal and like not even there.
Yeah.
So those cows have very good nerves, I think. So, but then so then you got around that sort of swerving, cars. But I like in India, there's a lot less cars, which is really smart for traffic congestion. and then there's there's tuk-tuks weaving around the cars and
Mm-hmm.
motorbikes and scooters weaving, and there's like a couple centimeter gap between the bike and on both sides and the tuk-tuk and the car, and like they're swerving and there's not lines or like signs or anything like that, and it all works. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
this kind of almost organism that works and comes together. It's exciting. There's noises and just kind of works, and it's normal. And even like scooters, there's four people on a scooter, and you see a couple of those, and you're like, wow, they, people get to work, people do what they do, they go into the business. And what I noticed, interesting culture. My ears are still ringing. Like
Still.
so, like so basically, there is like um, noise from the hooting
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference is, in Cape Town, probably a lot of the world. I'll speak to Cape Town, South Africa. When someone hoots, they are angry. You've done something wrong.
You
It
mean
is
and
a
you mean like
warning that, like,
honking for the
yes,
US that
yes,
would be
sorry,
honking. Yeah, yeah.
exactly, the honking the horn of your car.
Yeah.
It's you've done something wrong, or you've been dangerous, almost caused an accident, or you're doing something that you're not happy about, or the guy's got rage or something. So hooting sort of signifies sort of bigger thing. People will look at signs and indicate and all this. In India, if you want to signal anything, they just hoot. It's
Yeah.
like they say it's like a friendly hoot. It's like, just saying hello. So you say you come near a car, you hoot. It's like saying, I'm near you. That means maybe I'm turning towards you, maybe I'm turning away. It's just a be aware of me. I haven't really indicated what I'm doing, but I'm there. I'm doing something. And everyone does that to everyone. And so it's like just a noise, like sensory overload. But it's just interesting that like the way a hoot is used is different. And then you try cross the road and it's different. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much difference. Like so in Cape Town, you'll stand there looking at cars. Like I don't know, you're watching wildlife or something, just waiting for a gap, and
Mm-hmm.
then you go, or you go to a zebra. But we've got a bit of a jaywalk culture, so it's more likely you're just crossing on a road when there's a
Yeah,
gap.
yeah, yeah.
So for better or for worse, but and then if you go in these cars, they're going to flip and drive into you. You're going to jump, and you'll tell your kids that story hopefully. So, but there you basically have to own the road, and so you just start walking, and there's like endless vehicles coming towards you, and there's no gaps. And you just start walking, and it's like it feels like a I don't know Moses type effect. Like everything just starts like swerving around you, and they
Mm-hmm.
all just kind of reroute at like full speed, and so you kind of just have to walk and just like get comfortable that the car that's about to hit you is actually going to swerve, and they're not going to be surprised, and they're going to know what to do, and it's going to be harmony. So you literally just walk into full blast on crazy oncoming traffic, and you just walk slowly, because if you move fast, it's like the squirrel effect. They don't know what to do, and you just kind of cross, and the ocean just kind of swerves around you.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. It's a little nerve wracking when the first time you try to cross the road, you're like, what the hell? This is dangerous. But like, it's like you feel like the person who's telling you that you must do that is like messing with you. It's like, nah, man, no ways. And then it's
All
yeah.
right. Real talk.
Did
Were
you
you
find on?
how afraid were you
I want to
of
ask,
crossing?
how afraid was I?
Yeah. The first couple times.
Terrified.
Yeah, yeah.
My brain, like the signals coming in, did not compute. I didn't understand. It's like almost the opposite of how it's in my mind meant to work. And like I don't know, man. And there's like, as I said, no lanes. It's just, and the traffic moves. There's like just endless vehicles, and it's never like, well, it's often not stop standing, but in anywhere else it would be like a standstill, just overwhelming number of vehicles. But there it's kind
Yeah.
of going, and there's just like also a variety of things. I just on that I laugh so hard because people also hooting such a big common thing. They'll pump out their hooters, pimp my car, but with hooters.
Yeah.
So this bus had like I love this was actually a go. It was so funny to me. It had this hooter, but it was like a 10-second, like those silent movies, or sort of where they have that music where it's like, you know,
Oh,
a
sure,
bunch
yeah,
of
yeah.
characters are chasing each other, running around. I'm not the best music, you know, bringing that up, but it's like kind of that, like, characters running after each other. It's like almost like a
Yeah.
montagey
Like
thing,
Monty Hall
like very
kind of
upbeat.
music, like kind of silly.
Exactly. So every time he hoots, it's like 10 seconds of and there's a whole like Indian, there's a little bit of Indian flavor on that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and he's just the whole time playing that track just because he hoots, and it's so loud. And at that, but I just the novelty of it, I wasn't even bothered, even though it was like, I
That's
just
so
thought
funny.
how bizarre, but how cool.
Yeah, that's so funny. Oh my god. You
Did
know,
you find on your Vietnam trip that there
mhm.
was kind of sort of normal or more novel experiences that were just sort of interesting, super interesting, something that someone there might find ordinary, or something that's just day to day that really sort of stuck out for you and made an impression, or just piqued the ears, as they say?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stay on this whole talk on traffic because Vietnam had very similar. It sounds like Vietnam has very similar traffic to India in a lot of cases, especially like Ho Chi Minh City slash Saigon. Uh, they're that was my first destination, and they definitely have like it sounds very similar to India. Tons of bikes, and for them, it's motorbikes. Motorbikes all over the place, going every which way. Sometimes driving on the sidewalk when it's busy. But like lights are kind of optional, street signs are kind of optional, stopping is kind of optional. The it just constant flowing and these giant roads. Um, and it I remember my first day I land into the airport at Ho Chi Minh City. It's like around noon. I get into my grab and I'm seeing all these bikes and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is insane. I'm so glad I'm not driving in this city." Well, I'm walking around later. I'm starting to get jet lagged. I'm exhausted. I was just flying for like 20 hours and I'm trying to cross the street, and this is like maybe a 5-lane street, and there are just bikes, just a constant stream of bikes, and I'm like, I'm waiting for the traffic light to change. It's not changing, and I'm seeing them just constantly going, and there are 8 million bikes in this city. Not 8 million people, 8 million motorbikes going every which way. And I learned that so the first couple times I was absolutely terrified to cross the street. I am exhausted. I am in a new country. I don't understand how the flow of traffic works yet, and I'm trying to participate in that flow because, like you said, like when you're crossing the road, whether you're crossing at the zebra or crosswalk or jaywalking, you are participating in that flow of traffic. And you kind of have to be like the cows, right? You have to be slow and confident for the all the cars and bikes and rickshaws and tuk-tuks to know how to get around you, because you're right, if you do quick movements, like if you act like a squirrel, you will become a squirrel, as in you will become roadkill. And that's not what we want to do when we're on these trips. So it took me some time, and I learned by observing how locals did it. So like I watched a couple like older people, they're not moving very quick, but they're moving very confidently, and they managed to like get through. I'm like, okay, like they sometimes they'd make a little signal to be like, hey, that was their version of honking, right? So they're saying like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm intending to cross," and then they start going, and then slow and steady until you make it to your destination. And similarly, there's also honking was another way of, or hooting was another way of communication between the motorbikes and the cars, especially the cars, because there's so many motorbikes and a lot fewer cars driving. So when a car was driving, they'd be like, "Hey, motorbikes, I'm here, so be careful."
Yeah.
And that was like really fascinating. But I think what was ultimately most fascinating to me was when I talked to other travelers about the traffic. And I had realized that some people just kind of instinctively understood it. some people said like it makes so much more sense here than back home, whether that was America or New Zealand, where we're more accustomed to following signage and lights. And there's more of a stop and go flow to the traffic, but that's still a flow. And to them, something like this was something like Vietnam or India was much more intuitive to them because it's less of a signage based thing, and it's more of like understanding the space you're taking up, understanding how the flow of traffic is going and going with the flow. And we've talked about this before. I remember we did an episode last year on like flowing and like flow states and stuff like that. And traffic flowing is kind of a similar thing. Once you get included in it, you kind of understand what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to go, and that's kind of what makes it so beautiful. Because how many times did you see like traffic jams in India?
I mean, exactly. I mean, there is where there's like, there's crunch zones just because of, maybe very high, density and very, popular areas or,
Yeah.
just poor road design. But most of the time, it's way more volume than I know back home in Cape Town. But it just moves. You're making progress, and you
Hmm.
actually feel like you're getting somewhere, and you're not,
You're getting
watching that
somewhere.
same tree.
in
Yeah.
like in like so many American cities, like Los Angeles is famous for this. Like traffic grinds to a halt. Like it can take you an hour to go like a couple kilometers sometimes if you go in the wrong time because you have giant highways or giant like roads, but everyone is stopped because
Yeah.
they're waiting on the right signals and then stop and go traffic. But like in Vietnam, I hardly ever saw traffic get stopped.
Yeah. And you know, I think like two like things that I don't think would happen to there that maybe reflects in India, like the difference. The one is that there's, I think in Cape Town, there, maybe various places in the world, there's a bit of a fear culture about being on a bike or a scooter, which is understandable. There's risks, but it leads to like maybe 10% of the vehicles, if even in Cape Town, are two-wheeled vehicles, right?
Hmm.
Everyone's in cars, and most of the time it's one person and a four-seater car, right? And then you wonder why you've got such a traffic disaster in your cities.
Yeah.
Tourism is skyrocketing, and the way we do traffic isn't changing.
Yeah.
And just like a fun one, also like it seems silly, but example of like these kind of what seem very formalized systems failing. Like if there's an accident, it's not the cleanup of. I mean, it's part of it, of the accident that slows things down. Although it does, handling that, the police and stuff. But everyone will slow down and look at the accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that sheer curiosity, and that is like a big factor in why there'd be traffic. So you see accidents, you're like, be late for work and all that, and it's something like as silly as that. And in India, I can't imagine just like that endless convoy of harmony and swerving and you know um, desire to make progress and get to where you got to go. It's busy, rushed sort of like maybe environment, and so I can't see it happening there. But yeah, it's different. But yeah,
Yeah. And I also wonder if like with accidents, because that's a very common phenomenon where like sometimes traffic will stop for no reason because everyone's looking to see what's going on the other side because it seems interesting, right? You're on the road, you're in
mm,
your car, and like you see something interesting, so you like turn your head. But like maybe in India or like Vietnam, there's just so much always going on that no one has the time to do that. But I'm sure there are other plenty of distractions. I saw my fair share of like people on these motorbikes or these motorized scooters like on their phones while they're driving. So it's not like this perfect like harmonious state where everyone's paying attention and knows
yeah,
what's going on. They're going with the flow, but like maybe they should be paying a little bit more attention. And sometimes you get like really young kids on these like motorbikes that are driving. Like they learn to drive at such a young age that like it's instinctive for them.
Yeah, it's a very different.
Yeah, it's
And
super fascinating, but um I'm interested in like how different flows seem to be intuitive to some people, not to others. And like for me, once I understood how traffic worked in Vietnam, it made so much more sense. And then I was crossing the road with confidence and then navigating through the cities with confidence. And it even came into a head in Hanoi when I met up with Jason, our mutual buddy, who I did a podcast episode with not too long ago. And while we were there, I was kind of acting as his like unofficial tour guide in Hanoi and like kind of helping him get through the streets and cross the streets. There were a couple times where like I would cross and I'd hear him say, "Jesus, how is he doing that?"
that sounds like Jason.
And at that point, I had been in Vietnam for like a couple of weeks, so like I was just doing it so seamlessly, I wasn't even really thinking about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
even
You,
witnessing
you
that
all integrated
transfer,
at that point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Even witnessing that change within myself of like going from like deer in headlights kind of situation of like, oh my god, I don't know how to cross these roads, to like being able to navigate them with confidence, was really cool to observe within me.
Yeah. And you know, thinking on it like another sort of way where simple things were quite sort of profound was, you know, markets. And I want to use a like an example of the spice markets in Delhi. So, like, firstly, like going around India doesn't feel like that crowded. It's just busy, but
Mm-hmm.
certain things are crazy. So, like the markets there, there's just people everywhere, and no, it really is like spice is the word of the day. Like, there's just open every kind of spice you could want, like in
Yeah.
open containers, and there's bags of it everywhere, and
Oh
it's just
man.
bustling, and there's a store, but there's like 15 people in a little booth. It's like tiny little thing, all looking at that thing and this linen, and it's like those guys must be able to multitask running those stores like crazy, because it's just so many things that's going on, but they do it. And so, but when we in there, just the sheer volume, like I'll say that like in India, like for me, like it was a sensory experience for my nose, because like there's so many smells there. I don't know if it's like Cape Town, or it's like just like everything's just like maybe so clean, and or just doesn't have those kind of things, but
Maybe
it's
more
it's different.
subtle.
It really was. Yeah, maybe it's subtle. Maybe it's just the type of things we have in our house.
Yeah.
A smell would only really be like normally if you've got like perfume or something, incense or something by
Or
intention.
if you cook a
So
lot. I
yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so anyways, like we go, and there's like multi-story buildings in this market. You can go up and stuff, and you can look down and whatever. So it's just crazy. But I remember this going, you go deeper and deeper. It's like going deeper and deeper into the dark forest. Like you start to notice like the smell of spice is starting to get very strong, very overwhelming. And I think just lots of people, lots of spice, like the smells kind of condense and don't spread out. And so I remember going up, like kind of struggling with that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hot, so you're sweating, and
Yeah.
you're struggling in that way, so you're a little uncomfortable. And so on the third floor, I'm with I was doing a Kontiki for the first part of India, so I'm with the group at like the third floor. It looked like everyone had contracted like a deadly virus. This is the first point we kind of had stopped in a while. It was so funny. Like we actually, because we hadn't stopped, we just kept moving, and we were just going deeper and deeper. But there was like a kind of queue, so we have to stop and we collect or whatever. And I think they're probably trying to get the group together. And you know, I know allergies are like skyrocketing in the world, but that was like ridiculous. I think everyone developed an allergy that day, man.
Oh
Like I saw
man.
people's eyes going red, like coughing,
Whoa.
sneezing,
There was that much
sweating,
spice in the air.
yes, sniffing. I and like I'm just like, what's going on, guys? It's just like it's overwhelming. Like people kind of choking. You're like, it's like you're going, you know, like through a tear gas. Like everyone's covering their mouths and stuff.
Yeah.
I just thought it so funny. Like it just looked like we were just like super sick or whatever. But it's just the effects of I think firstly something we're not used to, but just that kind of environment. And I found that very interesting. So yeah, a simple thing, but it was cool for me seeing that busyness and just seeing how they live and the fact that everyone's selling something and industrious
Yeah.
and just creative. I saw a guy sharpening knives with a bicycle randomly, and I was like, "Oh wow!"
Like,
Um,
wait, what do you mean with the bicycle?
so I'll explain. Like they're very industrious and they're very salesmen. So everything's on sale, and there's so many creative ways of how things are done and sold. So I think this is actually a Japer, but
Hmm.
it just in the market story made me think of it. So basically, someone had taken a bicycle and attached it so that that basically it doesn't run away. So I think maybe the wheels were lifted
Okay.
just by custom soldering. And so there's like a board on the front, like where the basket would be, and then there's like a bunch of knives that are lined up. And basically, this guy's kind of customized the bike. So as he pedals the bike, there's like this basically like a thing that's there that moves, and then he pushes the knives through it and it sharpens it. But basically, he's made like a automated pedaling bike, sharpener knives, and you can just pay him on the street, and he's selling knives while he's doing this thing. And I,
Nice.
I was like,
He gets his
you're making a
exercise
living,
in
but
and he gets to sharpen his knives. I love it.
yeah, we need that for the Wii or something, Wouldn't that be? So
And
yeah, just
that's so smart because like that's actually a way that people do sharpen knives and blades, like using that like moving whetstone to like uh to 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 grind them a little bit. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah. So yeah, just the small little, I don't know, just interesting. Like that industrialist nature of kind of Indian people is very impressive, and
Hmm.
the it can get on your nerves, but it's interesting. Like the salesmanship, they're so polite and so friendly, but they're also like quite aggressive with the
Yeah,
selling.
that's
So
what I've heard.
if you look in their direction, they like it's like with the fishing rod, they start reeling. Ah, we caught one, So the so basically, like it's like they'll come up to you and they'll like have a whole story and But the thing is, like the deal, it feels like to them the deal's already sold. Like that's how they act. They're like, cool, cool, you've paid the money now. Now here's 10 different cloths. Which one are you choosing? And then they start putting them on you and taking them out. And like so you've got like I remember this actually better as an example in a carpet factory.
Hmm.
So the guy's like, hey, what do you think of the carpet? I was like, no, pretty, but I'm not really have money here to spend on this kind of thing. And hook, line, and sinker, he was like, hey, this guy's in. Even though I'm like, no, I'm not in. So he's like, no, 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 it's fine, fine. But do you like these carpets? It's just like, yeah, no, don't worry. No, no, no worries. No, don't worry about the money. Don't. It's not a problem. Like everything's not a problem. And I'm like, so you have to always come up with a very clever story to like get out of this.
Yeah.
Like you actually learn like culturally how to do that, which I'll talk about later. But so he's like, cool. He starts pulling out like 20 carpets and putting them down. So like he's made so much effort, you almost feel obliged to buy something. And then if you come up with problems, it's like, no, 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 we're leaving town to the next town. He's like, no, 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 it's fine. We're going to deliver and we'll find your hotel and we'll just deliver it there next day, and they're like, but I can't carry this around. It's like, no, 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 it's fine. We'll ship it to your country and everything. There's never a problem, and they shop. But
Yeah.
the guy's always got like, there's always a plan, and whatever, however you say this can't work, there's like a spiel. It's almost comical in a way, but they've got it down to a T. Hey, and so you're gonna have a very long conversation the moment you look in that kind of direction. But yeah, there's very salesmanship, but crazy at the same time, but kind of
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, it makes sense. You've got to make a living, and they understand that if they get your attention, they only have it for a very short period of time, potentially.
Yeah, no, exactly. Um, and I think also, well, I noticed was interesting in India is like with markets and shops, the where you go is important, like in the sense that because so I almost consider it like in India, like shops are random. Like, I don't know how you find things because there'll be like
Mm.
a street and there's like, pharmacy, random food shop, random restaurant. None of this is labeled. There's probably even like a hardware store, just like the random collection of things in a row. And even if you go into a store, it's like you go to the pharmacy. I'm looking for nail clippers, and so I ask a pharmacy if there's a supermarket because you never find a supermarket.
Yeah.
And like next to literally the medication, she pulls out a pair of nail clippers and she's like, "Here you go." So I
Oh.
bought that at the pharmacy, like just next to the bed. So I was like, "What?" So it's so random. Like, there's just like this stuff that. So what happens is people find their favorite seller or favorite person in the market. That is like,
Oh, and then they
and they
kind of go for
develop a
that to them.
relationship. So
Mm.
that's like a bond, that's like a bond in blood that they form, if that makes sense. Because like that is, you trust that person,
Yeah.
and I think trust in business is really important in India. So if the moment you go somewhere, you keep going there, and the owner gets to know you, and so you build up this trust and this relationship, and he might give you deals and things, and to the point that you won't go anywhere else. And in fact, it's like a legacy of that because your kids will go to the same seller because your mother went to that seller. That's
Wow.
how deep relationships are. I think in India, it's Cape Town, it's kind of cold. You go into a store there, it's like just another person, and won't get to know anyone.
Yeah,
So
like the
the
clerk
people
doesn't
aspect is
matter
strange.
so much because it's the store's policies and stuff like that. The clerk doesn't have the power to be like, "Oh, I remember you. I'll give you a discount."
Yeah, so I like those little things. How
Yeah.
people interact differently, and how the way they value the social side of being human in business. Because we talk a lot about, in just interactions and social and stuff, but just that even in business, it's that culture and social difference and norms. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're still human and like it's the more human side of business, which is awesome.
Yeah. The How did you find the people in Vietnam, um, like culturally and just generally?
Oh man. Uh People were just so kind. Like, so it was different, right? Like everyone was different all throughout, and in the South, like there was a lot of this like laid back atmosphere, especially in like Ho Chi Minh. It was like busy, but still like it was hot, so like a lot of people were just hanging out. Like you see people just like setting up little hammocks on their by their bikes, just like
Mm.
hanging out, wait, like napping through the hot sunny day. Um, you see like people walk around. I mean, in the big cities, it's still kind of a similar city vibe as you get in like a lot of other places where like people aren't necessarily going out of their way to talk to you, but in like the towns and like the more rural areas, people were very friendly. I mean, I learned a couple words in Vietnamese, like how to say hello and stuff, and like um, in some of the towns, like whenever I would say that, uh, I'd get like very big smiles. People
Yeah.
appreciated that I was trying to learn a little bit of the language and was interacting with them. Kids would come up to me occasionally and like try to practice their English, which was really cool. That happened actually a lot in Hanoi, where they had this big like they had a few. Hanoi has a few lakes, kind of in the center of the city, and it's a big source of just like people just hanging out. Like people walk around. There's some groups playing live music, maybe some people dancing, maybe like kids playing in the street, a couple like street vendors, maybe a night market. There's just so much going on just in this like public space.
Yeah.
And one of the days I was there, just walking around the lake with like a smoothie in hand, uh, people would come up to me and ask to practice their English. And so a teacher came up and I practiced with a couple like kids who were maybe like 4 or 5, and then these college kids came up to me while I was sitting down randomly and asked to practice, and like we had some conversations. We like got to know each other a little bit, and like I got to learn a bit about where they're from, and like they got to hear like some of the places I've been to in
Yeah.
Vietnam, and like I I talked about the foods that I liked. They always asked about like what Vietnamese foods I liked, and they were impressed by
Yeah.
my pronunciation, which I liked. Um, so people were. I found a lot of kindness, a lot of warmth, um, and uh, you know, people are still like hardworking. Like I noticed a lot of women, especially, doing a lot of jobs. Like a lot of women store owners. A lot of most of the people working the rice fields were women, as far as I could tell. A lot of women were running like the hostels and the homestays and things like that. So it's like it was interesting to see that even though this is still a fairly patriarchal society, like women did have a pretty important role in it and were playing a very active role in it. In some cases, a more active role than the men. Um,
Yeah.
I even got the pleasure of like spending a few days in the northern part of Vietnam with some of the more like ethnic or in the more ethnic village areas, which was super cool because this is very much like it almost feels like frozen in time a little bit because people
Ooh,
are
yeah.
still following a lot of their traditions, like weaving things by hand, using the dyes that are available, like uh, excavating, like creating like terraced hills for rice fields, tending to water buffalo, um, like even and like having kids at a young age, things like kind of typical things you'd expect in these village settings. And it was
Yes.
really interesting to see all those interactions. And even in those cases, the women were very visible, much more visible than the men. Like the women were like acting as tour guides, often with babies on their backs. The women were like weaving and making crafts. And like and working the rice fields and tending to the children. We asked
Yeah.
our tour guide, like, okay, well, the women are doing all these things, what are the men doing? And she's like, oh, they drink, they gamble.
That's a shit. That's almost like flipping the norm.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The on a I suppose a cultural difference in the woman on the India side. Mm. So in Mumbai, which immediately arriving there was interesting because the North and South India is quite different because you've got well many things, but the cuisine's different. Some of the norms are different, but the Portuguese sort of you know long time ago basically conquered sort of and sort of settled and integrated into sort of southern parts of India. So
Mm,
you go from like the architecture style is very different, much more. It almost feels like Gothic, sort of Western influences, very sort of elaborate, a lot of historical buildings versus more the almost very Hindu sort of buildings and sort of temples. But so uh, well, firstly, Indians work very hard. Let's just set the premise like that. They're very hard workers. You chat to
yeah,
someone,
yeah, yeah.
they're up like super early. They go home super late. A lot of respect. There's like this idea that like you work hard, you get a job. A lot of people sort of have that ambitious mindset of
Yeah.
I'm able to provide for my family, but I've got to make the effort. And so we basically did this tour where you go and there's a fish market, but this is like it's very early. I don't know, like 5 a.m. or something. Like can't remember the exact time, but it was super early. Like no one should be up there. It's inhuman. But so then, yeah, so we go to this fish market, and unfortunately, like as we got in, because there was basically at that docks there was the terrorist attacks back long time ago, and so the terrorists got through those docks. So there's a lot of security, so you have to hide your cameras and stuff. They're quite strict. But you go into the fish market, and you just notice like a lot of women, and so the women basically are the ones who buy the fish and sell the fish, and they're doing all the work there. And it's kind of like that. What are the men doing, right?
Hmm.
And they're not shy. Like you're in their way, they'll move you out the way. You're causing problems. They will tell
You
you.
get
So it's a
pushed a couple
very
times.
Yeah, yeah. Even the old ladies, man, the old lady will walk you over. They're very determined, very serious, and they're just running that show. Hey, the men will like saying like running the auctions and doing other roles, but the women's like it's a big part of that. You know, culture in their sort of economy, that they sort of run that show and are doing the shopping and deciding, making the decisions. And then you like basically you go and there's lots of fish, and they have this auction where there's just they take like a basket of fish and they just auction what do you think it's worth.
Hmm.
Very informal. Then people just throw out numbers like just at a face glance, and Western world you'd like have to weigh every fish and exactly. There's just like
Yeah.
basket of fish, throw some numbers and someone gets it, they take it on their head, carry this massive
Oh.
basket, and it goes on.
There must have been a
But
lot of fish in the basket for them to just like
uh,
say like, okay, just auction off the whole basket.
no, they do it like they just one basket comes in and then the next basket.
Mm.
Well, yeah, so everyone's bringing their fish that they've caught, and then they bring it, and so the operation goes on. So that's what ties me to like the nature of working. So the example of like a different culture and culture still holding part of, even though Mumbai, for instance, is very modern in Indian sort of terms, it's kind of like known as the New York of India. There's
Hmm.
still like that underlying part of the culture and sense of community and so on. So morning for all these people starts, like 5 a.m. or super early. After that, they all go and they basically the newspapers, they basically sort them and bundle them for the postman to take. So all the people go there, or a lot of people, and they're doing that, right? That's like the second job of the morning. And we got to see that. Just people on the ground grabbing all the local newspapers and sorting them in some system. Then after that, there's like the flower market. Like still, this is still the same
Oh my
day, right?
gosh.
Working
Same
day.
day and probably the same people.
Like I've been like I wake up early. I feel like I've had a day already. I'm feeling tired walking around,
Yeah.
seeing people doing effort and sweating. Like I'm feeling tired on their behalf, right? So then the in the flower market, which is amazing. This is like lots of flowers and all sorts of like almost unbelievable sort of arrangements. Like it was really something special to see like how they weave and use flowers, and it's just um, and that's like very busy. And so, but what happens is like the moment it ends, like it's like there was someone did a spell and it's just disappeared off the face of the earth. Like basically
Mm.
the all the people leave. Some of them just go like non-street markets, and
Yeah.
the sweepers come, and there's not like very quickly. There's not a sign that anyone was there. I'm like
Wow.
tons of people, flowers everywhere. Like it's incredibly busy and chaotic, and there's stuff everywhere. And then the next second, they just very like systematically, very efficiently, everyone disappears. They clean out, and now the streets are clean, so the working world can begin. And then this is almost when the independent sort of maybe people having different roles in society starts, because this is when people actually go to their jobs. So they're doing all the stuff together. Now it's the time. Hey, I'm a lawyer. I go to the law firm.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm an artist. I go to my art studio or gallery. And so that's just the morning of incestuous stuff together, and then people head off into the world, and you know, and then they start their job and they work long hours. Super interesting how a working world can be different. I think people maybe take that for granted, just how the job version of society works different. How cultures handle this notion of cultural responsibility, the roles you play, how different careers are judged. Is there more respect for that career or less respect? And in India, I noticed is that, for instance, careers are grouped. If you join that career, you expect to dress in certain colors. Our tour guide could,
Mm.
at a distance, see people and be like, they're from that part of India, they're that tribe, they're that profession. Just spotting them, like so much, like it's like you got their CV just by seeing them.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and so, but even more so, it's like your identity is a lot tied to your job, because then like so the Hindu, there's lots of gods, and the Hindu idea, well, it's like a lifestyle. They're big on it's a way of life. and not necessarily the subscribed organized religion. And so if you find you sort of want things in your life, there's a God that will offer it. And so you'll go and pray to that God, and they will maybe help you out, give you, insight and give you what you're looking for. So people in the military will pray to the God of strength and maybe, war and that kind of thing. Sorry, I
Yeah.
might not be getting this exactly accurate. I got the spark notes chatting to people, but
I'm
but
sure it's
like
very
the guys,
I'm sure it's very complicated, and like, they've
yeah,
had
yeah,
thousands of years to develop it. So
yeah. And then the textile guys will have a god that will, bless them with a type of skill or fortune that's relevant specifically to their work. And so, every job's got a god that just offers the type of thing. And so everyone working in that will just pray to that god because that's how they do it.
nice.
And dress the same,
Yeah.
worship the same. That's your group. It's like it's a clique, but jobs. Kind of,
Yeah.
uh,
That's so
yeah,
fascinating. It's so cool to hear how like how like societies organize themselves, right? And like just seeing like it's almost like I pictured as you're describing this morning scene as like a choreographed dance or like a play. Like just
yeah.
the players know where to go, and then scene ends as if there was no leaving no trace behind of the scene before.
Yeah, no, it is a harmony, and
Yeah.
it just plays out like almost rehearsed, as you say.
That kind of that sparked some reflections I had on like street food in Vietnam. And one thing I
Yes.
noticed is that the street food is very clean. Like the vendors generally do a very good job of like keeping very hygienic standards. Surprisingly, I mean, just because it is still cooked on the street with like motorbikes, literally like like just a couple meters away from from the place that they're presenting food, but I noticed that so the usually it's the same food vendors are out for most of the day, but there are periods where they are kind of stopped serving food and are just cleaning. And this happens all over the place. You'll see like these big tubs where people cleaning all of their utensils and plates, and even cleaning the stools and the tables, and like you'll see water on the sidewalks. The sidewalk is kind of getting clean too, and it's kind of cool
Yeah.
to see like the it's like the ebb and flow of both serving food, then cleaning, serving, then cleaning. And I got to witness some really cool like evening rituals that the locals do. Like, and this is happening all around the country, especially in the big cities. But like at around 9 or 10 p.m., after the locals have like eaten dinner, a lot of young people, especially, will be hanging out at cafes. And this is like hang out at cafes where they have like seats on street corners and sidewalks, and tons of them will of these little tables will be out, and they will be drinking juices or smoothies and eating sunflower seeds, shell on sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because it seems to be such a big cultural thing for them. And sometimes you'll walk by these corners and it's always like a couple, like these cafes are like situated so that they're like kind of close to each other, and tons of people are just sitting down, and you hear like as they're like
Yeah.
munching on the sunflower seeds. And in a city, in like a place where you hear all these like and like honk honk and like chit chatter and like all these random things of like traffic and chatter and noise, just hearing this almost almost like organized sound of crunching seeds is so
Yeah.
unexpected and is such like an auditory treat.
It sounds like you had a really good sensory experience for the ears up in
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Vietnam.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I even
The
got,
but
I
that was
mean,
interesting. Yeah.
I try to travel with all of my senses, because One thing
Yes.
I realized, or I started to realize a couple years ago, is that the main reason I experience anything or I want to seek experiences is that I want to form lasting memories. And the best way for me to form lasting memories is when I am truly present in a moment. And that requires
Yeah.
me to use more than just my eyes and my mouth. It requires me to use more of my senses. It requires me to be like fully there and take in all of the signals, all the information I can so that I can form these lasting, easily accessible memories.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing, right? It's not just looking at the things and being there and having a tick list and getting your Instagram shots. I mean, that stuff's so fun. It's like really experiencing something,
Yeah.
living that part of the world and understanding the experiences and the emotions and
Yeah.
what it's like to do those kind of things.
And I've noticed that sometimes the things I remember best are the scenes that I didn't get a chance to capture with my phone.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't have a photo behind these scenes, but I remember them very vividly. I could paint the picture within my head.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. The special moments are not the flashy ones, and
Yeah.
they don't come. They're not like, oh, I'm in the queue. I'm at the front of the queue. Okay, three, two, one, experience. Boom. Confetti. Hey, I've experienced a big moment. Some of
Yeah,
it feels like
yeah.
that. But like a lot of the a lot of the cool ones are just like they almost just surprise you, or they just stick with you. Just random like chatting with a local family, like that I don't know. I like one of my favorite memories is I don't even know if I remember the specifics. It was just the element of having this authentic conversation, like as if they're my neighbors, just with them, and that stuck with me. I'm like thinking, why is this in the memory bank? I traveled across the world, and I'm remembering just a family chat, and I think it's sticking with me a long time. It was so special. The yeah, these are the beautiful things in travel, right? These kind of
Yeah.
moments.
I think that stuck with you because it was a moment of authentic human connection. And when you get like those moments are have such powerful effects on us. Like you feel so good after you make like an authentic connection with someone. And even if it's someone you'll never meet again, you don't even have to know their name, but just connecting with someone on like a human level, it feels good. And I remember a lot of my moments in all of throughout like my life of like where I just interacted with someone and like we shared a moment together, and maybe that was all we'll share, and maybe we don't even remember who we are, but we remember the moment, remember the
Uh,
connection.
yeah, exactly. That connection, special. I just it was just a moment of like hearing someone talk from their perspective, their culture, and their life about their life. If that makes
Yeah.
sense, just hearing their day to day, the family roles, how they see that thing. It's not going to be how like anyone else in the world sees that situation and home setup. Just how the woman sort of contributes to the household, how the men do, and
Yeah.
I just it's cool. That was a true moment of getting an understanding of what it's really like to be in a household there. And when you travel, it's sometimes hard to get those
Yeah.
exposure to that.
Yeah, and it's
The-
great that you were able to have a moment to get that perspective. It's easy to I was reading a book on like communication, and it was saying how psychologists used to think that like the best way to connect with someone was to take their perspective and try to assume what their perspective is like. But now we understand that really the best way to communicate and to connect on a human level is not to assume someone's perspective, but to ask for their perspective, to try to get their perspective. Because everyone's perspective does have unique elements that are unique to their own life story and their own experiences.
Yeah. And I don't know, yeah, it's also when you see like a relatable experience to this almost to another person's similar experience, but actually seeing how that affects them and their opinions formed from that, it just makes you think like just the world really is a big place, and people really have their own life stories and their culture.
Yeah.
And we can look at the same piece of art or interaction and take so much different from it. I think it's cool.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? These experiences, these different perspectives, we know these aren't unique to just different places. Your family members probably have different perspectives on to you on various things. It's like always
Yeah.
amazing to me how like we can all look at the same thing and see something very differently, notice something very differently, feel something very differently. And I think that it is in those differences like that we get to understand the people around us on a deeper level. Because if we're all like if you like just because yeah, if you and someone else are like talking about the same thing but noticing different things, then that's important. That means something, and it means something personal, I believe.
No, no, but most definitely. It's part of the say the things you can take out of travel or even just take out of your life is simpler perspective changes. I
Mm-hmm.
do want to we were talking about it, I think pre-trip, just while we still got airtime. The oh, Holly, I wanted to tell you how it
Oh
went.
yeah.
Um, a great example of a different cultural experience and how people's perspective on how we should celebrate. How do we enjoy our culture and, as a community, just enjoy, have fun, and express ourselves. And,
Yeah.
part of perspective is how you express yourself, right? And so the, okay, basically, Holly starts, we were in Udiper and
Do you want to
basically at the
explain a little
hotel.
bit about what Holly is?
Yes, yes, sorry, yeah. So Hollyville, yeah, it's the sort of Indian festival of color. It's a great celebration. There's a lot of joy, and it's sort of an exciting time. The and it happens all over India. Everyone's involved, and everyone's included, and it's also just being part of the community and just interacting with people on just a city level. I don't know if I know as much about the historic and backstory, but I think the societal impact and sort of meaning sort of is that sort of area. And so things happening in Holly would be well, firstly, everyone's just taking a break from life. All businesses are closed. Everyone's on the street, and I mean everyone. Well, almost everyone. And so that everyone's on the street, and you got a city of I can't remember. There's 5 million, like millions of people, and they're all on the street. So you see everyone is around, and so you'll dress in ideally sort of cultural clothes that are white,
Mm-hmm.
because you're basically grabbing like fairly safe but soluble colors, water soluble colors, and you just kind of throwing them at each other, or just there's kind of this thing where they kind of rub color on you. It's
Yeah.
almost like some sort of I suppose, message being sent, like, I see you, I respect you, and I'm just happy you're celebrating and sharing this meaning with us. And so you're just like, yeah, everyone's doing this. Water guns. You can see the fun factor. Like a lot of, I suppose, celebrations can be quite serious or quite generic, like, oh, it's a public holiday. Hey, we got time off, or there's a theme. But this is just about almost just the embracing the idea of joy and authenticity. And so, yeah, just water being thrown, and even upstairs, people are throwing buckets of water to the people down below, and everyone's laughing, and everyone's going, "Happy holiday!" and so good that you're celebrating with us. And so, anyways, you get absolutely covered in paint in all directions. You feel like your face has been violated in several directions because I must have had like 1,000 hands rubbing my face and other parts of my body with paint.
Oh my
So
God.
you get very, very comfortable with the people around you. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just part of the fun. You realize like it's not this ooh, don't touch me, don't come in my space, which can happen in a lot of places. I know back home that's kind of that. It's like that kind of respect. It's respectful, but also there's a bit of in each other's faces. But
Yeah.
um, and so we go and as a group we're trying to get to like one of the hotspots, a couple of places people congregate for the bigger sort of celebrations. They stack straw and they burn these massive sort of straw creations, almost artistic. And there's like concerts and music and obviously paint. And
Yeah.
so we're walking there, and this is the first time I really saw and experienced like how many people are really in India. Like I remember this like probably like kilometer stretch that was like kind of this like smaller sort of road with like kind of a raised wall and then like sort of buildings, and the amount of people trying to get through that stretch. And I've been to some seriously busy concerts, and this is like not even comparable to that. Just like a wall of people, and you're like trying to squeeze through this wall, and it's like almost like a harmony of like, okay, there's a slipstream, you're getting pushed this way. All of a sudden, that side moves really fast,
Yeah.
and then stops, and then you get pushed to the left, and then all of a sudden it moves really fast, and then you just dead stopped, and it's like everyone's swimming, and just showing even the vehicle culture between people and how people view where they should park and how to use their vehicles in this impenetrable wall where you could hardly get to the end. In fact, I don't have those promo, but I was struggling to get through. So I saw people basically they start climbing over people, and actually there's bikes parked, and people start just climbing over the bikes, and some people just running on the bikes, like
Yeah.
like something like out of an action movie, like jumping car to car. They're just hopping on the back of bike to bike, literally running full speed. Like it's just everything's happening like that. And so then then it opens up a bit, and it's just the volume of people and color, and the music's everywhere, and people are singing, and there's people with instruments. It's like just the overwhelming amount of celebration and people just kind of having fun and just being out. It's like seeing the best side of everyone, just seeing that human side. Like we all have kind of joy and happiness and authenticity and a sense of respecting and valuing everyone, and you just see all of that just kind of overflowing as like, hey, these are real people that have real emotions and who also there who can enjoy play. That serious face behind the desk, all of a sudden this person laughing and shooting a water gun, and you realize people are people. And then we went to the concert, and you can't move. It's like you get to a point you're actually stuck, and all you do is you can jump on the spot and like try to lift your phone and like try to get a picture of something or whatever. And it's like the most horrendous attempt at photography. Imagine like being bumped in like 5 directions with people, so you're kind of like swaying
Yeah.
like you're in a tornado or whatever, and you're trying to like take pictures. Every time you lift your arm, you get knocked, and so your
Yeah.
whole phone like
Yeah, you
almost
better
smears
better hold on to your
across
phone
the
tight.
sky. Yeah,
If you drop
exactly.
that phone, it's gone.
And then like so all your pictures are like of like like not like the like at angles. Actually,
Yeah.
Jason can relate to that. He's got that camera style. So, but also like at or like of random people, of just at the sky, or like you take pictures of things you couldn't even see. You're like, oh, there were people like lifting each other up and jumping there. I didn't know that because my phone got bumped and like
Yeah.
a random thing like that. So it was a really special moment, and I think just how people show express themselves and like show joy and actually can all just be together in something like there's no separation, no one's are not part of the fun. It's the sense of inclusivity that I thought was really cool, really special. Like
Yeah. How did it feel to be part of that?
it's like touching in a way, right? It's like everyone's just so happy you're there. They're like, oh, thanks for coming out, and they shake your hand and they rub your hair with paint, and it's like everyone's just excited that everyone's out and is part of their community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yeah, it's a very interesting festival, but it definitely has a place in the heart, and yeah, it'll stay with me. Um, a good showcase of their culture, and yeah, recommend it. It's a good time, but be warned, you will be attacked with paint and water and hands and all the things, but you will be laughing and enjoying it. So yeah.
I've been to a couple like local holy festivals here in Seattle, and it's always one of my favorite things to be a part of because it's just the color, the music, the dancing, the community. No, it doesn't matter who you are accepted, you are brought in. It just feels, and it feels so good, it feels so belonging, like you've got a, like you have a place, you belong. It feels like a mass connection with everyone. um and yeah, it feels like a home in a way. And
I
those,
think it's
yeah.
yeah. Now, I was going to say it's like almost I think a very healthy moment for society, but don't you think it's a moment of suspending judgment just for like everyone for a day? The
Hmm.
idea of judgment and expectations kind of just goes. It's just we're all here. We got the same idea, same purpose in this moment, same core human things. And as I said, it's a home and a community, and
Yeah.
just everyone forgetting all those perceptions and biases and worries in their life, and just taking a break and saying let's suspend all that and let's just be authentic people.
Yeah, because it really is like a suspension of expectations, suspension of judgments. And like it's funny to me how like we spend so much effort to build these societies and build these expectations for these societies that we think are for the best, but then we need these reminders that we are all human, and that we all belong. And it's unfortunate that those reminders are rare, and maybe becoming rarer in these societies where we're constantly focused on what's next and how do we keep getting more and how do we advance. But it's the most important thing to remember that we're human, and that our the people around us are human, and that really isn't anything separating us besides the expectations that we put for ourselves.
Yeah, I think the world kind of boxes us in a bit, like these expectations and these social norms and these structures and the way things are and all the influences and all the things we expose and the overwhelming amount of things we need to do and how we should spend our time and just and there's so many of those things, and this normalization of how you are, this is it, that it defines your reality. Like this is just these are almost like the rules of the universe in a way, right? That's kind of how it's like pasted
Yeah.
in front of us. Like this is just how it is. This is how you should live. This is what's expected of you. These are all things you have to do because your life will, it's going to be fall apart if you don't do all these things and you don't, have that successful job and that kind of partner and do this thing and achieve this thing. And also the way you think, it's not just like what's true and how everyone thinks. No, no, no. The world is very different. It's just you're in your isolated space and community and country or region or such, whatever collective, that you don't get to see all of that, and so you get this illusion that all there is what's in front of you, and all the ways to live and the ways to think are just what's in front of you, and it's there's a lot that challenges that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. All right, Stephen.
Yeah.
This has been a very fun chat, but it has been gone a little bit, and I'm getting a little hungry. So, and it's lunchtime here.
Fair enough.
So, do you have any concluding
Yeah.
thoughts, or? Uh,
I want to chat. I'll just say a little bit on the food as my concluding
okay. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk
thing.
about food.
Indian food, amazing. I don't know how they do it, but you take your spices at home and you think you're cooking well. You go to India and you see them with spices. It's like another ball game. You're not playing the same sport. You know, you're
Yeah.
playing what's that action cricket when you're in a circle or whatever. They're playing, world championship cricket. And
What a good analogy.
sorry, yeah. And so the way they infuse flavor into simple ingredients is amazing. Like I had a bit of a bad illusion at the start because I ordered like what sounded like fancy dishes, and then I learned like you order the thing that just sounds like, I admit they don't advertise the menu very well, but it was like, oh, mushroom and veg or something or like that, and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of uninteresting. Then you come and it's like this like fantastic rice dish with mushrooms and like spices and kind of sauces and herbs, and you just like eat it and you're like, what you're seeing almost doesn't add up because there's all this flavor that is just not obvious when you go there. It's like
Yeah.
it's very rich food, that's the only thing, but there's just that flavor and that just the way they complement flavors I found was very interesting and really like do justice to the spices or the plants they use. And I think maybe that's through many years of kind of developing that practice that they've, I feel like, perfected it. Yeah, and on the on the Indian people, I'll just say one sort of little thing. I kind of find interesting. When you arrive, you feel like the tourist
Mm-hmm.
because everyone wants to take pictures of you. Everyone wants to chat with you. You are like the hit of the town. It blew my mind. Like here, when tourists come, they come and they take pictures of all the locals. There you arrive. You just take like a picture here and there. They like go, kind of like super excited. Like they're like taking pictures. You're standing. You're like, the celebrity in the latest, series. Like everyone's taking pictures, running up to you, talking. Like it's like always, it's hard to understand what's going on. Like you almost think like you did something that's going to be like one of those YouTube videos of like, oh, that person did that thing wrong,
Yeah.
or it's like, what did we do that's getting all this attention? And they're just excited to see tourists and experience new people. It's like a very interesting thing. And as a South African, we have a very tight relationship as a country with India, and India is, very big on cricket, like
Mm.
absurdly big on it. Like every TV in India that I saw had cricket, LPL cricket on, and so they'll ask me, do you watch cricket? As I said, also like a food thing. How do you like the food? Do you like crickets? And then you say, do you like this? Are you a fan of this cricketer? And if you say yes, they're like, oh man, it's like we've connected just over something like that. Like it's like that cricketer is like if you said you've met Mandela or something. It's like a huge thing. So um, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, that was kind of my experience there, and yeah, it was cool. And it sounds like you also had like quite a profound experience in Vietnam. And
Oh, I have
yeah,
profound experiences everywhere I go. Sometimes
it's
when I take
amazing,
a
man.
walk in my hometown, I get a profound experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of
Well,
course. It's so good to chat with you. It's
yeah.
been too long. We'll have to do more of these now that you're back. Now that we're both back from our travels.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. Share our experiences and ideas, and it's
Yeah.
always a good time, right?
Yeah.
I always value our conversations.
Yeah, same. Well, thanks so much again, Stephen. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, make sure to like and share the podcast. Um, follow us on Instagram, although I haven't really been posting too much lately. But that's more of me not really being very social media-y in the last few months. But maybe I'll start it again. Who knows? And as always, embrace your chaos with kindness.